The land of Israel was quiet, but it was the silence of fear. The air was heavy, as if the very earth itself mourned for its people. Each morning, the sun rose over fields that once echoed with laughter and song, but now only the wind carried the hushed voices of a nation in bondage. For 40 long years, the Philistines ruled as oppressors, their iron grip unyielding. They took the best of the harvest, leaving the Israelites with barely enough to survive. The fruits of honest labor were stolen, and hope itself seemed to wither in the fields. The people's spirit was crushed beneath the boots of foreign soldiers, and every season brought new reminders of their powerlessness. The people lived under constant humiliation, their prayers reduced to whispers in the night. In the darkness, families gathered in secret, afraid to speak too loudly, afraid to hope too much. Mothers comforted their children with stories of a time when Israel was free. But even those stories began to sound like distant legends. The God of their ancestors felt distant, their stories of deliverance fading into memory. The elders remembered tales of Moses and Joshua, of miracles and mighty acts. But now those memories seemed to belong to another world. The heavens, once a source of comfort, now seemed silent and cold. Yet even in darkness, a longing for light persisted. Somewhere deep within, the Israelites clung to the hope that their suffering would not last forever. Each dawn brought a fragile sense of possibility, a reminder that even the longest night must end. The Israelites yearned for a champion, someone to remind them they were not forgotten. They looked to the horizon, searching for a sign that God still watched over them. Their hearts ached for a leader who could break their chains and restore their dignity. They waited for a sign, a glimmer of hope in a world ruled by enemies. Every small kindness, every act of courage became a spark in the darkness. The people watched and waited, believing that deliverance could come at any moment from the most unexpected place. This was a nation desperate for deliverance, held captive by a powerful foe. The chains were not just of iron, but of fear and despair. The Israelites were outnumbered, outmatched, and seemingly forgotten by the world. The stage was set for a story, not just of one man, but of a nation's soul. The land itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when history would turn. At the crossroads of faith and fear, the destiny of Israel hung in the balance. Where does true strength come from? Is it found in the might of armies, in the sharpness of swords, or does it spring from a deeper source? The answer would challenge everything the people believed about power, faith, and hope. The answer would come not from a king's palace, but from the humble home of a childless couple. In the quiet corners of ordinary life, the seeds of change were being planted. The story of deliverance would begin in the most unlikely of places. In their despair, hope was about to be reborn. From the barrenness of sorrow, new life would spring forth. The prayers whispered in darkness would soon give way to songs of joy. This is the world waiting for a hero. The story begins, not just of a man, but of a people rediscovering their faith, their courage, and their destiny. In the quiet village of Zorah, nestled among the hills of ancient Israel, Manoah and his wife lived with a deep and aching sorrow. They had no children. Their days passed in silence, their hopes quietly fading with each season. The empty cradle in their humble home was a constant reminder of dreams unfulfilled, and their longing echoed the suffering of their people. Their empty home mirrored Israel's bondage under the Philistines. The nation groaned under oppression, and hope seemed distant, almost forgotten. Yet in the midst of despair, The smallest spark can ignite a miracle. One day, everything changed.
Suddenly, a radiant figure appeared before Manoah's wife. The angel's voice was gentle but powerful. "You are barren, but you will give birth to a son." The words hung in the air, impossible and yet filled with hope. She listened, heart pounding, as the messenger spoke of a future she had scarcely dared to imagine.
The promise was miraculous, but it came with sacred instructions. This child would be set apart for God, unlike any other. He was to be raised with care, his life marked by a holy vow. He was to be a Nazirite from birth, dedicated for a special purpose. No razor would touch his head, and he would abstain from wine and unclean food. His very existence would be a sign of God's intervention.
A man of God came to me. He said, "You will have a son. Drink no wine, eat nothing unclean. The boy will be a Nazirite of God from birth." His words were clear, his presence unforgettable. I felt the weight of destiny settle upon our home.
Manoah, filled with awe and uncertainty, prayed for guidance. He longed to understand how to raise this promised child. In answer, the angel returned, confirming the message and offering reassurance. Their faith was being tested, but also rewarded. This child, Samson, was chosen to begin Israel's deliverance. He would grow to be a symbol of hope, a living answer to years of prayer and suffering. His story was only beginning, but already the promise of freedom stirred in the hearts of his people. He was a gift, a promise, a weapon forged by God for a purpose greater than anyone could imagine. In his tiny hands, the future of a nation rested. The miracle child brought light into a world shadowed by fear. In a time of despair, hope was born in the most unlikely place. A humble home, a barren woman, a whispered promise from heaven. The impossible had become possible, and the world would never be the same. The answer to Israel's prayers was on its way. The dawn of deliverance had begun to break, and with it the story of Samson, the child of promise, the hope of a nation. The story of Samson had begun, woven with faith, courage, and the mysterious ways of God. A nation's fate would rest on his shoulders, and the world would watch as hope took its first breath. The angel's instructions formed the Nazirite vow, a sacred separation, a calling that set one apart from the ordinary rhythms of life. This vow was not just a list of rules, but a declaration of devotion, a visible sign that someone belonged wholly to God. In a world filled with distractions and temptations, the Nazirite stood as a living reminder of what it meant to be set apart for a higher purpose. Nazirites dedicated themselves to God, often for a season, but Samson's vow was unique. His was for life, chosen before he even drew his first breath. Unlike others who chose the path of separation for a time, Samson was marked from the womb, his destiny shaped by divine command. His entire existence would be a testament to this sacred calling. 3 rules defined his calling: no wine or strong drink, no contact with the dead, and no razor to touch his head. Each restriction was a daily reminder of his commitment, shaping his habits, his choices, and even his appearance. These boundaries were not meant to burden, but to protect the sacred relationship between Samson and his God. Abstaining from wine meant finding joy in God, not in earthly pleasures. It was a call to seek fulfillment in the spiritual, to let go of fleeting indulgences and embrace a deeper, lasting joy. In a land where vineyards flourished, Samson's refusal was a bold statement of faith. Avoiding the unclean kept him pure, a vessel for God's power. Every step away from impurity was a step closer to the divine, a way of keeping his heart and body ready for the work he was called to do. Ritual purity was not just about outward actions, but about inner readiness. His uncut hair was the visible sign of his vow, a symbol, not a source, of strength. It was a living testimony, a mark that set him apart in every crowd. As his hair grew, so did the story of his devotion, woven strand by strand into the fabric of his life. As long as he kept his vow, God's power would rest on him. The strength that filled Samson was not his own, but a gift that flowed from obedience and trust. His might was a reflection of his faithfulness, a partnership between human weakness and divine power. Samson's life was a living covenant, a reminder to Israel of where true strength comes from. He was a signpost pointing beyond himself, calling his people to remember the source of their hope and deliverance. His every action echoed the promise that God's presence was with them. His extraordinary power was a gift tied to obedience. When he honored his vow, miracles followed, feats that defied explanation, victories that inspired awe. But the source of his strength was never in his muscles, but in his faithfulness to the God who called him. The vow set him apart, marking him for a divine purpose. In every crowd, Samson was different, chosen, consecrated, and watched by all. His life was a living question. What does it mean to belong to God alone? Samson was not just a man. He was a living promise, a walking prophecy of what God could do through a willing heart. His story was a challenge to all who watched. Dare to be set apart, dare to trust, dare to live for something greater. His story was about to unfold, and with it, the mystery of strength, sacrifice, and the cost of being chosen. As Samson grew, God's Spirit stirred in him. He was strong, confident, and impulsive. His first act was to seek a Philistine wife against his parents' wishes. On the way, a lion attacked. Empowered by God, Samson tore it apart barehanded. Later, he found honey in the lion's carcass. A riddle formed in his mind.
Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet.
The Philistines couldn't solve it, so they threatened his wife for the answer. She coaxed the secret from Samson and betrayed him.
If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle.
Betrayed and furious, Samson's conflict with the Philistines had begun. The stage was set for a battle between one man and a nation. Samson's strength and his flaws would shape Israel's fate. Betrayed, Samson's rage ignited a war with the Philistines. He struck down 30 men in Ashkelon to pay his debt, but the conflict escalated. When his wife was given away, Samson burned the Philistines' fields with foxes and torches. The Philistines retaliated with brutal violence, killing his wife and her father. Samson vowed revenge, attacking them relentlessly. Hunted, he hid in a cave, while the Philistines demanded his surrender. The Israelites, fearful, bound Samson and handed him over. As the Philistines celebrated, God's Spirit empowered Samson. He broke his bonds, seized a donkey's jawbone, and struck down 1,000 men. God used the most unlikely weapon to deliver Israel. Samson became a legend, a one-man army against oppression, but his greatest battles were yet to come. After his victories, Samson's weakness emerged, not for wine, but for women outside his faith. He fell for Delilah, who was tempted by Philistine silver. The Philistine leaders bribed her to uncover Samson's secret.
Find out the secret of his strength so we can subdue him.
Delilah chose betrayal over love. She pressed Samson for his secret, trying 3 times with false answers.
How can you say, "I love you," when you won't confide in me?
Each time, Samson broke free, treating the vow as a game. But Delilah's persistence wore him down. The real danger was not the Philistines, but the woman in his arms. Samson was walking dangerously close to disaster. Delilah's persistence broke Samson's resolve. Tired and desperate, he revealed his secret. His uncut hair was the sign of his vow.
No razor has touched my head. If it is shaved, my strength will leave me.
Delilah betrayed him for silver, shaving his hair as he slept. His strength quietly vanished. The Lord had left him.
Samson, the Philistines are upon you!
He tried to break free, but his power was gone. The Philistines seized him, ending his reign of strength. The price of betrayal was total. Samson lost his strength, freedom, and connection to God. The champion of Israel was now a captive. His greatest weakness had undone him. The consequences were devastating, but the story was not over. The Philistines blinded Samson, humiliating him and making him grind grain in prison. The mighty warrior was reduced to a slave, walking in darkness. His blindness mirrored his spiritual failure. He had lost sight of his purpose. Yet, in the silence of prison, Samson reflected and repented. His hair began to grow, a quiet sign of hope. Stripped of pride, he found humility and turned back to God. In weakness, his faith was reborn. Samson prayed, seeking not revenge, but redemption. He was no longer the arrogant champion, but a humbled servant. In darkness, he reached for God's strength once more. Redemption was within reach. The Philistines celebrated their victory in the temple of Dagon, bringing Samson out to mock him.
Our God has delivered our enemy into our hands.
Samson stood between the pillars, surrounded by thousands. In his humiliation, he prayed one last time.
Sovereign Lord, remember me. Strengthen me just once more.
Placing his hands on the pillars, Samson pushed with all his might. God's strength returned. The temple collapsed, killing Samson and his enemies. In death, Samson achieved his greatest victory. His final act was not revenge, but faith. Samson's story is a lesson. Strength and gifts mean nothing without faithfulness. Even flawed heroes can find redemption. True strength is found in humble trust in God. Samson's legacy endures, a reminder that hope can rise from the darkest places. Thank you for watching The Bible Storyteller. Subscribe, like, and share.